The chip war is heating up. The two superpowers, the United States and China, are locked in a race to design and manufacture the most advanced chips. We've already talked about this on this channel. As of today, South Korea and Taiwan represent nearly 40% of all global chip manufacturing, and a significant 70% when it comes to the most advanced chips. This is something that Washington, Brussels, and Beijing are eager to change. Oil has shaped geopolitics over the last 5 decades, but chip manufacturing will define the next 5. This is the new geopolitics. In recent months, a new contender has emerged, a new player aiming to reach the top, Japan. Hello to all the community of Finance for All, welcome to another video. Taiwanese company TSMC controls more than 50% of advanced chip production, meaning that one of the most important production chains in the world relies on a small island of just 36,000 square kilometers, which also faces a significant threat. What would happen, for example, if China were to finally decide to invade or simply blockade Taiwan over some diplomatic spat? Would that lead to a disruption in the supply of a component that is absolutely vital for the modern economy? Unfortunately, the answer is likely yes. A confrontation on the island could potentially cripple a large part of the international economic system and even slow down the production of modern military equipment. Taiwan, dear friends, has become a crucial epicenter of international production chains. In fact, no joke, the country that leads this race will be in the best position to outmaneuver the military and economic power of any other nation. Think about it, whether we're talking about artificial intelligence, 5G, or cutting-edge military technology, everything depends on chips. This is something that Washington understands very well. To try to mitigate this risk and, at the same time, catch up, the Biden administration pushed through the CHIPS and Science Act, which was approved on August 9, 2022. This law provides billions of dollars to support the establishment of advanced chip factories in the United States. The idea is that public subsidies will help offset, or at least mitigate, the higher costs associated with setting up these factories in the US. For now, this strategy has led to headlines like these. TSMC to invest $40 billion in Arizona with its second semiconductor chip plant. Micron to invest up to $100 billion in a chip factory in New York. As you can see, the investments are massive. Here at Finance for All, we've already explained in previous videos how this is one of the most complex and capital-intensive industries in the world. But it's not just the United States that's taking action, the European Union and several of its member countries are also working along the same lines. And in recent months, another major player has made it clear that they intend to compete in this race, a competition that has already become one of the great geo-economic battles of our time. I'm talking, dear friends, about a country globally known for its robots and high-speed trains, Japan. Japan is entering the chip war. The world's third-largest economy and a formidable technological giant is diving headfirst into the competition. The stakes are high, and it's becoming a national priority. Just last summer, for example, we learned that a state-backed investment fund, the Japan Investment Corporation, made an offer of over $6 billion to acquire JSR, the world's largest manufacturer of photoresist. Photoresist resins are crucial for chip manufacturing. This light-sensitive material allows miniature circuits to be printed onto silicon wafers using photolithography technology, which is essentially printing with light. The Japanese government now seems determined to create a national champion by securing capital and merging or acquiring rival companies into this project. The idea is to control, or at least have significant influence over, as much of the international chip production chain as possible. They understand that if Japan controls the technology, research, and production of key supplies for this industry, it will be easier to attract the large and advanced factories that produce these tiny, indispensable components to the country. In other words, we could almost say that Japan aims to create the world's largest chip cluster, which would put the land of the rising sun back at the forefront of global technology. And certainly, Japan has all the ingredients needed to achieve this. The country boasts a highly skilled workforce, ample financial capital, and, as we'll see, a sophisticated supply chain that is already well developed. Compared to Taiwan, Japan is a much safer place, not facing the risk of invasion. Compared to China, it has a more advanced level of technology and much greater legal security. And when it comes to the United States, Japan stands out not only for its availability of skilled labor but also for much more competitive wages. I believe this graph clearly shows this advantage. The last few decades haven't been particularly good for the Japanese, but as you can see, they've at least allowed them to gain competitiveness. This is why the major chip manufacturers have already rushed to invest in the land of the rising sun. TSMC, the Taiwanese giant and global leader in chip manufacturing, is about to complete its first factory in Japan, an investment worth $8 billion. Additionally, TSMC has plans for a second factory and is even preparing a new major investment to produce its most advanced 3nm chips. But it's not just TSMC eyeing Japan. Other major manufacturers like Micron Technology and Samsung Electronics are also setting their sights on the country. Furthermore, there are local manufacturers and projects to consider. Perhaps the most notable among them is Rapidus Corp, a local startup with direct support from the Japanese government and participation from the American giant IBM. This company is preparing to invest around $35 billion to produce the world's most advanced 2nm chips in Hokkaido. If successful, this could be a game changer for the entire industry. IBM is driving this Japanese chip startup, which it considers vital. Rapidus represents Japan's effort to create a domestic version of TSMC. According to IBM, when it comes to 2nm technology, we are focusing our efforts on Rapidus and investing a significant amount of resources into this project, even at the expense of some capacity that could have been used in other research. However, there are three key questions we need to answer. Why Japan? What are the chances of success for this venture? And what could this entire endeavor mean for the Japanese economy? So, why Japan? In a way, we've already touched on this, but it's worth expanding on three main reasons that explain why all eyes are turning back to a country that was once the king of important technological products like Walkmans, tapes, and video games. The first reason is that Japan is a highly advanced country technologically. Although not widely known, Japan has become one of the most advanced suppliers of complex materials for various industries, especially the tech industry, over the past few decades. In the case of chips, the Japanese industry produces many of the tools, components, and supplies needed to manufacture the world's most advanced chips. For instance, Japan accounts for 30% of the global production of fluorinated polyimide and is the second largest supplier of equipment for this industry. Even a company like Canon has spent years developing extreme ultraviolet nano-imprint lithography equipment, each of which costs hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, it seems that Canon will now have some competition. Its advanced chip-making machines will cost a fraction of what ASML's top machines do. In other words, while there's a lot of talk about Taiwan, the land of the rising sun is also a key player in the global semiconductor supply chain. The second reason for the sudden focus on Japan's industrial ecosystem has a lot to do with the country's ultra-expansive monetary policy, which involves very low interest rates. Why is this an advantage? In the short to medium term, this policy results in a weak yen, which benefits exporters. This is an old recipe that practically all Asian countries have used to boost their export sectors at the expense of local consumers' purchasing power. But that's not all. The chip industry is extremely capital-intensive, requiring massive investments. Advanced chip production factories are perhaps the most complex and expensive factories in the world, with projects often requiring tens of billions of dollars in investment. Here, having ample financing available at low interest rates can be a significant advantage. The third reason is that in Japan, it's relatively easy to build and launch new projects. If the government grants you permission, you have almost everything in place, something that doesn't happen in countries like the United States or the United Kingdom. In those countries, the demands of various interest groups and the lengthy permitting processes can drag things out. This is exactly why we see news like this. Japan's $8 billion TSMC chip project is moving forward, while the US project faces challenges. These three advantages make Japan a very attractive place for setting up new chip plants. The Japanese government knows this and is determined not to miss this opportunity. So, if the US government is putting over $50 billion on the table and the Chinese government is doing the same, Tokyo isn't going to be left behind. Japan's new plans include billions of dollars in direct subsidies to support this activity in the country. Japan will allocate $13 billion for chips in its supplementary budget. And this, dear friends, is how Japan has fully entered the chip war, perhaps the most important economic competition of our time. The battle between the United States, Taiwan, South Korea, China, and Japan is on. Now that we've reached this point, I'll ask one thing: if you found this video interesting, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe.